For this first segment, we remember the showbiz icons who use their talents to help uplift the people. Gina, Lori was talking about the difficulties of songwriters, copyrights, royalties, etc. You're the performer, you're the singer. Now, a lot of people say, wow, buti pa si Gina, sikat na siya, mayaman na siya, etc. Could you share the kind of life? Kasi, okay, transparency ito. Nagka-girlfriend din ako na singer who was doing the Rojas Boulevard, the strip performances, and hindi biro yung buhay na yun at that time. Now, in your case, please share your life with our viewers.
Yes, the Rojas Boulevard scene at that time was during martial law. So, ilabutan ko yung mga stay-in. So you can imagine, after a performance, hindi ka pa kaagad makauwi. And then, of course, the income that you make isn't enough for you to buy a car. So you're always riding the taxi in the wee hours of the morning or after curfew. And then, going to the other situation, I recorded many songs, but I never received any royalty ever in my life. So for me, as a vocalist, as a performer, all I earn is the night's professional fee. So talaga ang katapat lang, passion and sipag. That is why I continue. If somebody invites me to sing my hot dog songs, by all means, I'll go. Because I love it. I'm proud of it. And one thing about me, I embrace the fact that I'm part of history. Filipino Music 101 kasama ako doon. Pioneer ako. And I embrace that. Even if the monetary side, true, hindi ka yayaman. You have to be a big star to make that money.
What happened to, di ba, kasi nanganak din yung generation nyo ng circus band, ng all this, what happened to all of them? I mean, Pili Moreno is abroad, I suppose.
Yes. You know, that is the biggest challenge that you just said. There has to be an organization that takes care of this artist, whether you're young and budding or you're retirable, you still have a place where you can share history, where things can be archived. In the Philippines, I don't think there's any of something of that semblance. There's nothing that I know of. So, you know, old musicians who've made names for themselves end up just sometimes retiring impoverished.
Kanya-kanya yun, Sito. So whoever wrote it, like me, yung panaginip, di baling wala akong kitain, I copyrighted it. Para ako may-ari nito. Kahit wala akong kitain, walang makakakuha nito. Ibig sabihin, I can say, this is mine. But others, kanya-kanyang, the others, they parang, they assigned it to publishers or yung collecting agencies like PhilSCAP. So yun ang nagko-collect sa kanila because right now may mga nire-revive yung kanta or pine-play sa YouTube or some other social media.
So pero walang foundation whose preserving, protecting, as Gina pointed out, there is no foundation, there is no official organization that preserves, protects the musical pieces.
Wala eh. Even though yung ano nga sana maganda, parang somebody tried to, yung i-digitize and archive lahat ng music natin simula noon. Isipin mo lahat ng mga kundiman, lahat ng mga, all the mga Rick Manrique and even before that, para ma-digitize, ma-save natin, ma-archive natin eh. Because ngayon, hindi na natin alam kung saan-saan, kung ano-ano na lang yung mga plaka, hindi mo na ma-access yun if you want to do research and stuff. Nasaan yung records? Wala na. So yun sana maganda, but I think hindi ka push through kasi siyempre walang support. Pero yun ang maganda, sana yung music natin, parang film archive din sa abroad. Talagang they treasure their history films nila. Talaga nandyan eh. Pero tayo
Okay.
wala, nagkakasira-sira lahat. Sayang, di ba?
We are hoping that with everybody's support and hopefully they enjoy the show, that we're going to be able to do this so we can showcase new talents and more talents all over, not just from the Philippines, maybe from Filipinos from all over the world. We don't know. And obviously we'll also be doing more tributes. So right now we are looking at every 3 months and to be held in different parts of not just, it's such a broad thing to say that it's going to be on the Malacanang grounds, but it will never be in the same place. We will have it situated in different parts of Malacanang so that even on the live stream you can see that. You can see the beauty of the palace.
Why is that? Okay, that last sentence from you, so you could see the beauty of the palace, that makes sense. But why only in Malacanang?
I don't think it has anything to do with political undertones or anything like that. But I think there's always this, even as a performing artist, whenever somebody would tell me, oh, there's an inquiry for you to sing in Malacanang, there's this added pressure and there's this added esteem of actually being able to perform there. And so I think that right now, of course, we're exploring the Malacanang grounds, but I honestly cannot speak for my team. But I have a feeling at some point this is really just a way also for the president to highlight performing artists, no? And it's great to have it in Malacanang, but hopefully I am hoping that we're going to be able to branch out into other places. But this for now, this seems to be, there seems to be a lot of places in Malacanang right now that we can actually perform in.
Regarding doon po sa amin, first you have the Batangas Forum. Kailangan ba magtayo muna ng Batangas Forum or pwede bang paano
Siguro.
umpisaan ng mga ibang mayor, etc.?
Okay, ganito ang ginawa namin. Ang swerte kami dahil kasama namin sa Batangas Forum as honorary member si Governor Mandanas. So, but you're correct. Hindi pwedeng umandar ang project na ito kung iaasa lang natin sa private sector o di kaya iaasa lang natin sa gobyerno. Hindi. Ang nagpartner kami ng PTCAO, yun ang inassign ni Governor Mandanas, yung Provincial Tourism, Culture and Arts na sa office, yun yung katulong namin magpatakbo nitong doon po sa amin. Kailangan po yun. So, kung ang mga ibang probinsya ay dapat may private sector na kapartner. Gawa para maayos ang Tapos ang ginawa namin, nagturo nga kami ng filmmaking or audiovisual making. Ang unang ang unang workshop is paano gumawa ng video gamit ang iyong cellphone. Parang as simple as that. Kasi ang gusto natin, ang kailangan ng PISIDA, ng creative industry, ay dumami ang gumagawa ng videos, no? So, parang you democratize filmmaking. Hindi naman kailangan ang maging Lino Broca tayo o Steven Spielberg para gumawa ng audiovisual material. Kailangan lang natin matuto ng basic kung paano gumawa at saka hindi naman yan technical ang audiovisual naman ang pag-aaral ng filmmaking hindi naman yan technical at saka yung mga equipment hindi. Ano ang istorya mo? Ang istorya, parang moving pictures that move people. Meron din ako naiisip, Sito, baka pwede rin yung mga developers, property developers. Kasi they spend a lot advertising weekends sa Enquirer, ang dami nilang mga spread ng kung yun kung sila ang maging partner ng gobyerno, ay yun din naman ang ginagawa nila Pinapakita nila kung anong maganda doon sa probinsyang napili nilang i-develop. So, baka yun ang magandang kapartner ng mga gobernador na ang pinag-uusapan natin kung ano maganda diyan kung anong yun ina-advertise ninyo ay di let the people advertise what is good in their country, in their province. Kasi sabi ko nga, pag kultura ang pinag-usapan natin, never ending na ang ating content materials. Kasi kultura yan Ang kultura, kailangan naman nating dapat kultura ang pinag-uusapan natin kasi kailangan nating alagaan ang ating kultura. Hindi naman atin yan Pamana yan ng ating kagalingan at karangalan ng ating mga ninuno. So, yun ang dapat nating ikalat, ang ating kultura. At pag yun ang pinag-uusapan natin, wala nang katapusan ng ating content material.
Agenda will be right back. You're back on Agenda. As we approach the end of the year, join us in revisiting the profound insight shared by some of our change makers who graced our interviews. Our conversations have been a source of inspiration, shedding light on impactful changes and innovative ideas that have defined the past 12 months.
The family is you not only need family members that have an operator mindset, meaning they're very good at looking at your traditional businesses, driving efficiency in your operation, but you need a few family members that have an owner mindset that is more strategic, that can look at the 30,000 feet level, look at the future and say, how should our business and how should our enterprise change? If you look at the Ayalas, the Aboitis, and the Cs, right?
Okay.
All of their traditional businesses, when the founder started, is not what's making the value creation today, right? The C started with rubber slippers. Today, they're in banking, in mining, in education, in retail, in malls. The Aboitis started in shipping,
Power.
but now it's a huge conglomerate, right? It's really to educate the family that agility is good. Build agility in your system, allow diversity of perspective, and allow experimentation, right? So we always encourage the older generation to provide seed money to the younger generation. Obviously, monitor it, manage it, to let them venture out and look and explore at different opportunities. They're not looking for the CEO role. right? They're looking for a role where they can have a voice and they can help co-design the future of their system, right? And in fact, we have one family we're working with where the next generation says, if the senior generation doesn't want us to be the CEOs, to be the professionals in the business, but want us to be owners, but responsible owners that sit on the boards, that's well and good for us. We'll hire the professionals, right?
Mhm.
It's those conversations that are not happening in the system that needs
Okay.
to happen. And it's so important to have a family employment policy that says, what are the rules that and regulations by which a family member can come in and be employed? And what are the rules and regulations if they are not performing up to a certain standard, they can be terminated, right?
Mhm.
We need to understand that a family business has three dimensions. There's the family side, the ownership side, and the business, right? And you have to know which hat you're wearing. So the father that says, my son is not performing well, we hope that he's sitting and wearing, let's say, the chairman of the board hat and say, son, you're not performing well, you're fired. But then he can go back and play the father role and say, son, I'm sorry that it didn't work out. I still love you, right?
Mhm.
Let's help you find something that you're more passionate and that you can be more successful.
Mhm.
It's being able to separate those. And the problem with a lot of families, they're not trained to do that and they get convoluted, right? And things get very emotional.
Kung hindi available sa banks, pwede din naman na yung employer mo mismo kausapin mo na pwede ba nakaltasan ka and deposit this immediately to another bank account. Kami in our company, we operate a social enterprise. We have about 120 employees and what we do, very proud kami na walang salary loan sa office because the moment that they come in and get employed in our organization, we ask them, in our organization, we encourage savings. So if you agree to save 10% of your salary, we will match that with 5%. So no-brainer to all of them, lahat nagsisave. At yung mga
Pero
bagong...
sandali, hindi ka ba tinatamaan dun? Kasi, other bosses would say, well, that's highly commendable, but 5% or half of their salary you're going to match. What's in it for you?
Our ethos is we believe that if people are properly compensated, they become more loyal to the company, they have more grit to work, at actually iwas na iwas sa fraud. Kasi they're getting what they need and they're provided for. Kaya ganyan din yung pag-iingat nila at pag-care nila sa kumpanya.
They are really victims of the system. So, for example, in the World Bank, what the report also says that they have to go. So those in the system really need to be supported with like well implemented teacher training programs, right? They have to continue to have training, but how can a teacher focus on getting professional development when they have to deal with 50 students at a time in the classroom? Or how can a teacher focus on professional development when on top of teaching, they have administrative tasks? They're burdened with, they teach about 6 hours a day in the classroom. They're given about 2 hours to do administrative tasks, but the documents, anecdotally, and when we talk to teachers on the ground, the administrative tasks actually take up more time than teaching. So that all of these things kind of put the professional development and training in the back burner because they're just faced with so many problems in the classroom.
Yeah, and
All to say, we
yeah,
need
go
to
ahead.
change that.
You were saying?
But all to say, we need to change that system and we need to give teachers more time, more support so that they can, upgrade, reskill, continue with professional development so that they can have, better content knowledge and then better capacities in the classroom. We actually have many centers of excellence in the country. Well, not really many. We have a handful of centers of excellence. And these are in multiple regions. But we need more. There are more than 1,000 schools, colleges offering teacher education. Some of those do just okay. Some of those don't do well, and in fact have 0% passing rates in the licensure exam. What we need are more centers of excellences. We need more institutions. We really need to police these schools. I think we've released the studies before and we've provided this publicly, but I think it takes a lot of it's a very complicated process to close down poor performing schools. So it's also something very political, but I hope that's something that they can also look at. But we really need to make sure that we keep and we support these really good schools. And actually, these good schools can also take in sister schools, right? So maybe just to share like the context in the BARM. This is where you have the lowest learning outcomes of students, but this is also because there are no centers of excellence there. So
Okay.
you have a cycle where you don't have good teachers coming out of good schools and then they go into the system and then it perpetuates, right? It's a chicken and egg thing. But what we're seeing as a potential is that maybe some of these schools in that region could be supported or can learn from centers of excellence as well.
There is Baha'i Kubos all around the world. Just they have different names. They don't call it Baha'i Kubos, but there is this kind of bamboo huts in my country, in Colombia, in Central America, in Africa, and in the Philippines. And the problem is always the same. It's a temporary construction, not durable. Why? Because people don't know which bamboos to harvest. They don't know how to treat the pods well. And after a couple of years, those kind of huts became eaten by insects. In this case, in the Philippines, the most popular is bokbok and anay, and they eat very quickly the haikubos. And this problem create a perception in the public that the bamboo is a weak material, is not strong, is not durable, and it's a cheap material, and that's why it has this ugly name, the poor man's timber. But there is nothing more far to reality than that. Bamboo could be a very strong and very durable material if you treat it well and if you process it well. So I think what we are trying to do here in the Philippines is improving the technology in the field, working with the farmers, working with the communities, with other organizations, teaching them how to process the bamboo in the way that the best poles are using in construction. And then the methodology that we are implementing in the country, some images you can see now in the screen, are willing to provide the durability of the houses. So what we are looking in Base Baha'i is to produce houses that can last the same as a concrete house. So we are not saying, this is 10 years or 20-year solution. No, this is a permanent house. It will last the same as a conventional house, so we can be in the market.
Agenda's year-ender look back will be right back in a few moments. You're watching the Best of Agenda in the year 2023. Regina Lay, Ed Lingao, and Danny Laurel covered various issues for the program, such as the use of an AI or artificial intelligence in the workplace, the Taguig Makati boundary dispute, and the success of 2-bar exam top-notchers. Let's watch this.
The Philippines is prolific in terms of its outsourcing supply. I am biased, of course. I've been living here 9 years. I believe Philippines is the best destination for outsourcing services, bar none. And there are a lot of attempts of new entrants into the market. You know, every emerging market really wants to enter the outsourcing space because it is an incredible economic driver. And we have regular conversations, you know, with Kenya and Ethiopia and Jordan and Uzbekistan and Fiji, all, you know, Vietnam's obviously in vogue at the moment, Colombia, the Balkans. So all of these countries are trying to get into outsourcing. So, of course, it's up to the Philippines to remain competitive and instill their position as one of the market leaders. And I really believe the Philippines has what it takes to lead this industry. It's got to embrace the tools. You can't sort of deny it. You've got to embrace the tools. And for the short term, at least, it will be humans building these tools and humans managing and directing these tools. So, you know, I see no threat in the short to medium term. AI could completely change the rules of the game in terms of what it means to, you know, to work and to employ and to generate things. If that happens, it happens universally across the world, across the entire workforce. So it won't just impact outsourcing. It won't just impact the Philippines. This will be a global, universal issue. The call centers are slightly at risk if they're doing high repetition, low value tasks. And so that is, again, an incentive for the industry to upskill and to go up the value ladder into the sort of KPOs and staff augmentation instead of these sort of, you know, mass production kind of facilities. You know, all of these things that involve a lot of people doing the same function on a repetitive nature. And it won't suddenly be gone, but you just find that every month or every year there are operational efficiencies that are made through tools, through automation, and it might reduce the work required by 1%, 2%, and that just cumulatively erodes the work that needs to be done. But, you know, there is also a strong argument as AI comes along and as we get increasingly sophisticated, there will be even more sophisticated problems that we need to deal with. So, you know, it just sort of keeps on unraveling as we go. I have no immediate concern, to be honest.
When we first heard about it, we already relayed to them that we highly discourage such a Christmas convoy because nga of heightened tensions. No, the entire world, not only the Filipino people, know what's happening during our regular government run resupply missions to Ayungin Shoal, which happens very frequently. We've had laser incidents, we've had collisions, we've had water cannons, we've had dangerous maneuvers, and all sorts of reckless and coercive actions coming from the Chinese side. So when we first about it, we already told Atin Ito that we highly discourage him from doing so. So we were a bit surprised when they held a press conference the other day, on Monday, saying that they will proceed with the Christmas convoy to Ayungin Shoal. So we had to issue another statement yesterday telling them that we highly discourage what they're doing and instead go to the 8 other features. You know, Ed, this is something I think that the public is not very familiar with. No, sikat na sikat lang kasi ang Ayungin Shoal plus Bajo de Masinloc. No?
Yes,
but
sir.
there are many other Philippine occupied features that there are also Philippine troops and civilians living, and they also deserve some Christmas cheer. So we would rather that they do their Christmas convoys to the 8 other features in the West Philippine Sea. It is much safer to visit Pag-asa and the other islands rather than Ayungin, no? Ayungin is a different situation altogether, as you in the media have seen. So for Pag-asa, there still are radio challenges every now and then, but the tensions are not as high as in Ayungin.
I don't know why it is not yet there, but what is clear is that the Supreme Court, the highest court of the land, has already decided with finality. So it should be a matter of right. It should be just a few days. Normally, and ideally, that should be the case. But unfortunately, our country really suffers from a very slow judicial or justice process. That's why we have this situation where a legal issue has been resolved, but the politicians and the implementers on the ground are still disputing. Substantially, the issue has been resolved by the Supreme Court in favor of Taguig.
Okay.
So you would expect a winning party to take action based on that. But of course, again, Makati, to justify its refusal, is insisting on procedural rules, technicalities, and saying you first have to get the writ of execution from the RTC. So it's between substance and procedure, which I think, mediation or negotiation between the two political leaders could avoid all of these troubles. I am a consistent and avid supporter of alternative dispute resolution.
Okay.
So even if there's already a Supreme Court decision and there are some procedural issues, I think it will be faster for them to sit down, dialogue. If they cannot, because they have very definite positions and they're two strong-willed political leaders, the DILG can come in and mediate. And I hope they will pursue that. Because at the end, all of this positioning, it's really public funds for the same Filipinos. So it doesn't really matter who owns what. At the same time also, we have to uphold the majesty of the law. Once the Supreme Court has spoken, it would be good for everybody to just cooperate and enforce it and comply with it, with or without a writ of execution. It is correct. There's an issue of reimbursement payment for those buildings because Makati funds were used to build them. So it's just proper eventually that Taguig would pay for these buildings, or perhaps with the help of COA, they'll just make adjustments in their books. And in fairness to Makati also, if Taguig can afford it, eventually it has to pay. Now, if it cannot afford it, it can be done. By installment, or it can also be donated by Makati. Because at the end of the day, it's people's money. It's not the money of Makati or Taguig or the politicians. It's people's money. So there are many ways by which that issue of costing and reimbursement or rent could be settled without upsetting the welfare of the students. Very good that the ILG is coming into the picture because they should thresh this out among themselves and not rely anymore on the courts. Because look, they have been at it for 30 years. It also reflects how slow our justice system is. 30 years ang inabot. So they should take it upon themselves to resolve it by negotiating and the ILG in the background or in the forefront to settle this.
All right, let's talk about your backgrounds, no? Pio, attorney, you were a nurse, a registered nurse. What made you think of dropping, or I don't know if you're going to drop completely the medical profession and then turn to the legal profession? And meron bang similarities or synergies in what you've studied before that you can take into this legal profession? Are you going to be a legal profession in the medical field, for example?
You know, Ma'am Danny, I was supposed to pursue medicine because my late father was a doctor and my mother was a nurse.
Okay.
So they told me, why not try medicine? And it was not forced naman. So my pre-med was nurse because my mother was a nurse.
Okay.
However, during my nursing studies, we were required to go into the hospital and perform the duties of a nurse. I realized then and there in the hospital that this was not my life. He told me, why not try law? Because you loved reading. Because my father was a believer in higher education.
Correct.
So I said, why not? Then If there are Saturday classes only, so I could continue my business, then better.
Okay.
Then, little did I know that law school and perhaps law school and law was a very jealous mistress. And it required lots of time. And I had to be dedicated. Yun. As
Okay.
for the similarities in nursing, there the law was not much discussed in nursing. We just had the discussion and konti lang yung laws na na-discuss. However, one thing that I would like to point out is that while nursing is not a common pre-law, I owe my success in law school and placing in the bar to how I was taught in nursing school. Because I was taught to be prepared, anticipate the next step, especially in surgery. As nurses, we had to know what was the surgeon doing and what was he going to do next, so we could prepare the next instrument, so that when the surgeon gets to that step, we would immediately hand it over.
In journalism kasi we're taught to be communicators. So that's an important skill which you can use in law school and in legal practice. Because it's one thing to actually know the substance of the law, and it's another thing to communicate that substance to another person.
Interesting,
Or in the case
yeah.
of the bar exam, to communicate that legal basis to
Oo.
the examiner. So that foundation was instilled in me in journalism school. I was actually also a working student while
Wow.
during law school. And I was a news writer as well. So
Grabe.
I carried over that work ethic in law school, and it paid dividends for me.
Agenda will return after a few messages. Welcome back. For the final part of our look back, we revisit our conversations with titans of industry and visionary business leaders.
Well, firstly, if you're transferring money and you put in the wrong account number, if it's not a valid account number, it doesn't match with the name, it won't send. But we do have an extra checkpoint to be able to ensure that the information is correct. So we do try where we can. I think soon, before the end of the year, actually, Cito will be releasing a feature that's called Save Favorites. So you'll be able to actually save account. You can do it today for BPI account numbers. You can kind of save billers or people that you send money to often, so that you don't have to re-input the account number every time. But before the end of the year, we'll actually have a feature where you can do that for any account number, any bank. So that will limit the errors, I think, of having to re-input account numbers.
Yeah, because I think we are now at that point in the digital space where apps memorize frequently entered numbers. And there's even one app I remember that asked me, "Are you trying to send money to Mariana?" Or something. So I said, wow. I said, talk about, a predictive ability.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, Sito, that's exactly why we really ventured into this whole new world of track and plan. Because, I mean, let's face it, any bank, any digital bank or traditional bank can do a lot of the same things that each other are doing in terms of features on apps, right? It's hard to differentiate in this world. And so when as a team we stepped back and thought, okay, what do we think makes BPI different? How is it that we're going to be different in this world where a lot of banks look the same? And we realized that we have 172 years of giving Filipinos financial advice. Some might say, surveys might say, we're quite trusted when it comes to that. So we thought, okay, how do we harness that trust, harness the experience of giving this advice, but bring it to more people using technology? And that's really where Track and Plan was born. So the idea that we can give Filipinos better insights about their use of their funds to be able to help them manage their day-to-day cash flows. And then in the future, even more long-term, their financial goals.
The reason I started doing that about 4 or 5 months ago was because of my own children. So we were coming out of the pandemic. We just restarted the business and really very, very tough. And then in the middle of like family conversations over lunch or coffee, etc. And my children, right? They're 18, 24, and 25, 26. These are tough questions they ask, and the youth are asking, is there even hope? Right? Is it still worth the effort to start something, to work, and all that? So, syempre, you'll give some encouraging advice and some opportunities, etc. But at the same time, they actually want to hear the truth, the good, bad, and the ugly. So at some point, one of my children said, "Hey, Dad, can I shoot? Can I video what you're saying?" And then sabi ko, "Bakit?" I think this will benefit my classmates for asking about how to start a business, ganito, ganyan. And then another time we were biking and then having coffee, and then someone approached me, the friend of my son. Sabi niya, "Tito, can I ask you about business?" Sabi ko, "Of course." So I figured we might as well take these videos and then make it available. So ganun lang. I've actually evolved a little bit because I started with just my target audience are just the friends of my children and my own children. But I have realized that there is some engagement happening with class C and D, right? Masa. And I would love to serve Masa. So there are a lot of questions about how to set up a sari-sari store, a buko stand, all these things. So exciting siya kasi suddenly, ang daming gusto matuto. I mean, you think people just want to be entertained, but really, people want to start a business. People want to learn, and that's exciting.
The first very important thing is that you have to pay your people correctly. No, kung ano yung dapat do sa tao, kailangan makarating sa kanya para the basic requirement is no longer an issue. The only issue that will be left is the work environment. And we try our very best to keep the work environment fun. Kung paano tayo dito, Kuya Sito, nagkakwentuhan, ganun din kami with all our team. We're very open. Hindi ito parang, boss ako, hindi kita kakausapin, hindi ito ganito. And we keep our work environment really fun so that people will not feel the pressure and people will not feel na nakakatakot sabihin yung totoo kung meron mang sunog na darating. No, we encourage a very open. When we receive the offer, it's either a yes or a no. No? So if they give us a good location, chances are we will just say yes. Usually about 3 months to 6 months, we have to get it off the ground. Pero in deciding...
Kasama na yung construction?
No. The construction will take about 1.5 years for it to be done. Yun.
Okay, and your rule is always to lease and not to buy.
To buy and not to lease. Yeah.
Okay.
Pinag-ipunan namin.
Kuya sa akin, di ba? Don't buy land, don't buy a house, rent.
Iba yung iba yung situation kasi nila sa sa Amerika. Tayo sa Philippines is a growing economy. Ang ating mga property ay mabilis umakyat yung mga presyo. When we bought our property in Timog Avenue, in 3 months time, nag-appreciate na siya kaagad ng 30% eh. And right now, it's already at a point na even ourselves, we cannot buy our own property. Sobrang mahal na ng property namin ngayon.
That is so true.
The Mindanao Avenue property, when we bought it, we were one of those na bumili at a very high price dahil nga ito ay parang end cap ng kalye. So, nag-overprice kami nung binili namin to. Right
so
now,
you said,
it's already ang presyo niya, tinaasan pa namin para makuha lang namin yung buong end cap.
Okay, so you said buy, don't lease, save or borrow?
We borrowed money. Yeah, we had to borrow money kasi it's a very capital-intensive direction. So we borrowed. But when you borrow lang, you have to make sure that you are borrowing for the right purpose. No? It has to be an income-generating borrow. So if you borrow at, let's say, 10% per annum, example, or 5% per annum, you have to make sure that you are earning more than the amount of interest that you are paying for.
When you talk about life insurance, it's risk protection. Basically, there are 3 kinds of risks. You have to be protected from. No? The first one, and this is something that more people are familiar with, is the risk of dying too soon. You know, especially if you have a family, you are the breadwinner, and you have people depending on you for their livelihood. You want that protected. You want your family protected. No, the risk of dying too soon. The second risk is the risk of catastrophic illness, no? Getting sick, being hospitalized, and you know how expensive it is, no? When one gets hospitalized with a serious illness. So you want to be protected from that risk as well. The third risk, okay, we talked about dying too soon, but the third risk is the risk of living too long. There is such a risk as a risk of living too long, you know? I read somewhere recently that 1 out of 2 girls born today can expect to live all the way to 100. The human lifespan is more or less the same as it has been, about 100 years. But life expectancy, the number of people expecting to live all the way to 100, that's increasing. So if you expect to retire at 60 or 65, but expect to live all the way to 100, there is that risk that you will outlive your financial capability.
That's it for our 2023 look back. I'm Cito Beltran, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and an even happier New Year in 2024.